He said unto them, Sirs, I perceive this voyage will be with much hurt and damage, not only of the lading and the ship, but to our own lives. Nevertheless, verse 11, the centurion believed the master and the owner of the ship more than those things which were spoken of by Paul. Why would he do that? The simple fact of the matter is this. He believed the master and the owner of the ship because Paul was nobody. He was a prisoner. He was less than nobody. He was a prisoner being taken to be tried and possibly executed. He was also a tent maker, not a sailor. Peter, you know what? If Peter might have been there, he might have listened because Peter was a fisherman. He spent a lot of time on the water. That's what he did. But this wasn't Peter. This was Paul. So why should they listen to him? Nevertheless, the centurion believed the master and the owner of the ship. Why? This was probably a man that was raised on a ship. His father was a ship person. His grandfather was a ship person. It was in the family. It was passed on. He had knowledge and wisdom concerning the tides, the weather patterns, when they could, what they could, how much they could. This was his job. It was his business. The centurion had a decision to make. I need to know what we should do. Paul, which is just a tent maker and a prisoner to boot, he didn't take into effect that he was an apostle. He didn't take into account that he was an apostle. And he was hearing the voice of God saying, don't go. Centurion, he's in the flesh. He's not a spiritual man. He's not saved. He's not a Jew. He's not one of the people of God. He's not a Christian. He's not anybody. He is a centurion. Now, this was a powerful man under Roman rule, so he was making decisions with the backing, and we've talked about the centurion, also a man under authority. Remember that, Mike? I too am a man under authority. He had the whole Roman nation behind him as long as he abided by the rules and regulations. He had the whole Roman army and government behind him. He was a powerful guy. He was a powerful guy. The ship guy. He owned the ship. It's possible he owned the shipping line. This is how he made his living. This is what he did. This was his life. Okay? So the centurion had power, authority, knowledge, and the backing of the kingdom. The ship guy had knowledge, wisdom, understanding, and everything he needed to do his job and make his livelihood what it was. I'm sure he was rich to own a ship. And then we had Paul. But you want to scrub? I mean, a tent maker. Who doesn't know anything about the Roman army. He doesn't know anything about boats because he's not Peter. He doesn't know anything about weather patterns. He might have known some. I mean, I know a little bit about electricity. You've seen me do some stuff, but there's a limit to what I do. Nevertheless, the centurion believed the master and the owner of the ship. It was his business. It was his business. More than those things which are spoken of by Paul. Why? He's judging in the flesh with the carnal eyes. Now, concerning what we've already talked about tonight, how you see things is extremely and vitally important. Whether you see them in the flesh, because the wall has been built around you, because you were you were stationary too long. And the devil, as soon as you know what, it's like a trap. If you've got a saying, Mike, you say this, keep moving forward. I'm going to keep moving forward. As long as you keep moving forward on the direction and the path that God has for you, no moss is going to grow under your feet. You're not going to sink. You're not. Even if the ground is soft, if you keep walking, if you stand there, you may sink into it. But you know what? If you keep walking, you're going to be okay. But if you stop, the devil's going to erect a wall or set a wall in front of you. Now, I think you were gone, or I think we lost you or something. But I said this. If you stay there, okay, well, if you can't break through the wall, what are you going to do? You're going to go try to go around it. If you stay there too long thinking about it, he'll put a wall on the right side when you turn right. You turn back to the left, he'll put a wall on the left side. If you try to go backwards, what he's ultimately going to do is box you in. If you stand in one place too long, out of relationship, out of discernment with Jesus Christ, he will box you in and trap you. The only thing to do then is get a sledgehammer out and start beating on the wall. And hopefully you've got enough power and authority to beat it down. Because if you don't, you're stuck. Relationship with Christ, necessary, absolutely necessary. Plus, it doesn't hurt to have somebody in a relationship that owns a sledgehammer. that's used to beating on walls, that's used to battling in the spirit, that's on your side. Here we're talking about Paul. All right? So, he made a decision, and you know what? You can't really down the guy. He wasn't a Christian. He wasn't spiritual. He wasn't in a relationship with Christ. He made the best decision he could make with where he was at. It was wrong, but he made the best decision he could make. Watch who you listen to is really what it comes down to. Wisdom, and to know knowledge, to know instruction, to understand the dark sayings and perceive what is going on. It really comes down to where you receive godly wisdom from. Because everybody you get hooked up into this world, they may steer you this way or steer you that way or steer the other way, but they're not necessarily going to give you godly wisdom. And godly wisdom is what it takes to get through this world and make it to heaven. The wisdom of this world is not going to get you to heaven. The wisdom of the pseudo-church is not going to get you to heaven. It's just not. It's just not. All right. Nevertheless, the centurion believed the master and the owner of the ship more than those things which are spoken of by Paul. 12. And because the haven was not commodious to winter in, the more part advised that they depart thence also. What does that mean? Everybody on the ship didn't want to stay there either. They see what's going on. Paul's saying this, but he's standing alone. It's unusual how an apostle will stand by himself. If you're standing alone, that may be something showing up in your life that is one more little sign of a direction and a calling and a gifting. If you find yourself on a constant basis standing alone against the tide of the world, it might just be pointing a direction of calling and gifting. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Get used to it. And don't change. You are under covering, and that's a good thing. You stay under covering. But that doesn't mean you still won't fulfill the calling of an apostle. A lot of apostles never get out from under covering. They stay under covering until their covering dies. Then they become. What you see in front of you is not something that's done on a normal basis. It doesn't happen that much. All right. He's standing alone against who? The nation of Rome. Roman soldiers under power and authority. All he has is his words. All he has is his words. He's not wealthy. He doesn't own the ship. He can't bribe them. All he has is the word of the Lord. Doesn't sound like much. It's everything. It's everything. Proper relationship. We just spent an hour going through it. Proper relationship. It's everything. Everything. Stay under covering. Stay in proper relationship. Listen to the covering. Do what they say. All right. Everybody else at the same time was saying the same thing. Well, we don't want to stay here. We want to go. Why? Well, if I have to stay somewhere for the winter, you know what you didn't understand, or what you might not understand out of the scriptures and reading it out, is at a certain point the winter storms start and they will no longer be able to sail. Now they have to sit there for months. For months. If I'm not mistaken, this journey could have taken them upwards of 2 years. So this wasn't, well, we're going to get in the car and drive 1,000 miles. Well, that's now. Then it took a little bit longer to do stuff. So they didn't want to stay in this place for months. Nobody wanted to stay there. The only one that, and Paul didn't necessarily even want to stay there. He heard from the Lord, and the Lord said, you may not like being where you're at, but you know what? This is a better place than where you're going if you're not careful. Hear the word of the Lord. Yeah, but I'm going to Rome. Yeah, but when you get there and how you get there is up to God. Not up to you. Not up to you. How quick you get there is not up to you. It's up to God. It's up to God. It's up to God. Because Paul might have said, you know what, I heard God say this, but you know what, I don't want to stay here either, and everybody else wants to leave, so since everybody else is leaving, I'm leaving too, and we're all going to go because everybody's in accord. One mind, one accord. Keep in mind we're talking about Paul. Where do people get in trouble? they start applying things to their lives that don't necessarily apply to their lives. Paul was an apostle, and he was already matured in his apostleship. Normal people don't make these kind of decisions. They go to their authority and find out what's going on. What happens if normal people make these decisions? They've been lifted up within themselves, thinking they're more than they are, and they make the wrong decisions based on incorrect information, judged in the flesh, not in the spirit. Which we're going to find out what happened. The more part advised to depart thence also, if by any means they may obtain to Phenice, and there to winter, which is a haven of Crete, which lieth to the northwest and to the southwest and the northwest. In other words, the island laid in such a direction that the place where they built the city they wanted to be was on the leeward side, shielded from all the storms. Much nicer place to be. It was a haven. That's what the northwest-southwest means. Now, 13, and when the wind blew softly, supposing they had obtained their purpose. Now, we all made this decision, and we're all in one accord except for that guy. And he's never really in one accord with anybody, because he always seems to go against what everybody else is saying. Think about it. He always seems to be doing something other than what everybody else is saying. Speaking volumes right now, isn't it? That's speaking volumes. Well, nobody else does that. Well, nobody else believes that. Well, nobody else goes there. Well, nobody else thinks that. Nobody else.